How's it going, y'all? It's the real Pewdiepie here with the first silent podcast. Today I got a buddy that I've known for a long time, and I thought, why not get in touch with him and have him be my first episode since he's known me since I was 7. So honestly, what's one of the earliest memories that you can think of? Just people might be interested in, or
probably breaking my neck trying to look at your TV when we were playing GameCube in your bedroom, and for some reason the TV was like, it was a tube TV, but it was in a closet, and like it had to be at least 6 feet.
There was a separate hole that was cut out for that shit. It was like directly below the ceiling. There was not enough room. No, that shit. J Street brought a lot of good memories. I gotta say, the burying gems and shit. Funny times to look back at, and you know, it was kind of cool, just me, you, my older brother, and all that shit chilling up. But now with the aquatics business that you're in, I was wondering what's the good and the bad of that, and well, is there any bad to it?
Well, it started as a hobby, but there's definitely a lot more work involved. It's not all fun and games now, but I mean, it just depends on what it is. There's some bad. Sometimes you got to worry about having a little cut on your hand and reaching in random aquariums, but most of it's just enjoyment. And I don't know, same goes to what you're doing. As long as it's something you love, it's worth every little bit of work you got to put into it. But it's all pretty easy stuff.
How did you even find out that you were into that and actually felt a passion for it?
Well, first aquarium I found was in my basement, and I set it up. It was one of my old man's tanks. He used all the old crusty stuff he had just laying in there, made it work, and, well, tried to make it work. And the first several times I set up an aquarium, everything just would die after a few months, and I'd get new fish, and from a lot of trial and error I learned a lot of stuff. And that tank actually almost exploded, and that's why we had to take it down, because it didn't have a center brace, so the glass was bowed out like an inch. But after that I knew that was my addiction, and ended up getting more tanks. Actually, there was another tank in the basement I found, and then once I could scrape up money, I started setting up more stuff, and then a few years went by and it was just kind of a little hobby on the side. But eventually I got addicted, and it was like, alright, I need something big. And I set up what I thought was big at the time, which is just a 55-gallon tank, and got red-bellied piranhas and had a blast with that. And one thing led to another, and I had to breed food for the piranhas. So I started breeding random fish, and I found out that I could breed way more than what I needed, and other people wanted them too. So instead of it costing me money to get food for my fish, eventually I was making money off of them as well, and so it just made sense to do more and more. And I kept thinking like, oh, well, I can handle one more tank. So I'd set it up, get it going, and it'd be too easy. So I just set up another one, and now we're at, I don't know, 70 enclosures.
Was there a certain point that clicked to where it made you feel like, oh, I can make this into a business? Or did it just come with overtime, as in collecting shit you might as well be selling, rebreeding? And I also found it kind of fascinating too, you're even making your own food to sell for these animals that you're selling to other people. And honestly, the 4-minute build video, I thought that was pretty amazing, just getting a little bit of look at that perspective of that business. Another question I had about it was, were you automatically like comfortable with all animals, or was there certain points where like, oh, this is a little creepy, or, you know, dealing with the animals on a regular basis?
That's probably one of the funniest things to talk about, because nowadays I have all kinds of stuff, probably 20 different species of insects and all different kinds of reptiles, amphibians, aquatic stuff. It originally was just aquatic stuff. But I wasn't comfortable with, like, the big one was snakes. And this year is when I first started, well, last year now is when I first started selling snakes. And I had never even held a snake. I was always kind of nervous about him. And before that, I actually had a job where I would go to this guy's house when he had to feed his over 100 snakes. And my job was, if a snake that was too big decided to eat the rat, the tweezers in his arm, I was supposed to grab its tail and walk the other direction. But I was lucky enough I never had to do that. I just pretty much was watching him feed all the time. And I never even held a snake when I was there. And eventually when my girlfriend moved in and she had a snake, I tried to get closer and closer to where I was more comfortable, and eventually I would just feel the side of the snake, but I still never held any of hers. And then one day came along and it was just too good of a deal, and I didn't really have a choice, and I didn't show up prepared, and I ended up picking up a ball python. And so the first time I ever held a snake, I was holding it in one hand and driving with the other hand down the road, and I just keep looking at this guy like, all right, man, I hope you're all right with me. I'm sorry it's a little chilly out.
That shit reminds me of the fucking, have you seen the Ballad of Ricky Bobby or whatever?
Yeah.
Where his dad makes him drive with the tiger in his car or some shit.
Yeah, Talladega Nights.
Oh, that'd be something. That'd definitely be an anxiety for me. Yeah, I never held a snake myself either.
Well, we can change that.
Yeah, eventually. But yeah, no, insects, snakes, and that shit, it's not like I'll go screaming away in fear from the shits, but I don't know, just the thought of, oh, this motherfucker just gonna randomly jump at me or some shit.
Yeah, it's the unknown that's scary, is you don't really know, but the more you learn, the more comfortable you be, and the more comfortable you can be, and the more you understand, the less dangerous some of them critters seem, especially the corn snake and the ball python. Once you learn that they're constrictors and they barely even have teeth because they don't use their teeth really for anything besides maybe initially grabbing something. Once they wrap up around it, that's really what's dangerous, is how they can constrict, and that's why you should never have one around your neck or anything, because if it decides you're a meal, it can probably choke you out pretty quick, but it's still not going to be able to eat you. But similar story with the first time I ever held a bearded dragon was holding it in one hand and driving with the other. Besides, he was a lot bigger, so half the time he's sitting on my lap and stuff, and felt bad for the little guy because it's winter and they need that heat, so heat's blasting and I'm sweating. And
How long was the drive?
it wasn't very long. It might have been like a 10-mile drive, so not much more than 10 minutes. But then I had to, it was a rescue. Somebody couldn't take care of him and they contacted me, and so I said, well, let me make sure I can find a good home and I'll come take care of you. And so less than an hour later, I had a good home lined up with somebody that already owned a couple of them, and I went there, picked it up, came home, took a breath for a second, and then went to the north end and met them at PetSmart, and that was an interesting experience, but that seems to happen quite often.
Now, for the business, did you have it originally started before COVID hit, or was it more of a COVID project? Because I've noticed since COVID hit around and a lot of people went on unemployed, collecting the unemployment and shit, a lot more projects, and just seeing people's viewership on YouTube has just been skyrocketing because a lot of more people have been available to be home more. So has it affected you positively having COVID come around for the business, or did it affect it badly?
COVID definitely affected it positively, like insanely positively. It almost gave me a false sense of faith, and I ended up not doing my home health care job anymore because it was doing so well. But then things started to go back to normal and it really slowed down. And originally, like way before the COVID stuff happened, back in, I don't know, 2015 or something, I decided I don't want somebody telling me what to do. I want to work for myself. And so I saved up all this money. I think I saved up a little over $7,000. And I told my boss, I'm out of here. and and so I left, and then like a domino effect of shit hit the fan. I don't remember exactly what order happened, but my roof started leaking, and so that was a little patch job that had to get done. Then my water heater, the bottom of it rusted out, so I had to replace my water heater, and that was like $700.
Yeah, water heaters aren't.
Yeah, that sucked. And then my sink, actually the drain broke. It was some cheap plastic, and we poured a pan of hot water in there, it melted it, and so I had to go get a new drain. So I go to drive to Menards, and I get about halfway there, and me treating my vehicles how I shouldn't, I'm driving like a jackass, and I broke a lifter, and it pretty much was one of those jobs where it would have been smarter to just get rid of the vehicle and get something else. So I ended up needing a new water heater, needed to work on my sink, I needed to fix my roof, and I needed to get a new vehicle. And while in the meantime not having any income, I also had to keep up with all the bills and all the food I eat and stuff. So that $7,000 pretty much was gone in the first month.
I can believe that shit gets eaten up quick if you're not constantly having that resources to refund that shit. Because I've had $10,000 at one point, and then stopped working. I was like, oh, I'm good. I got plenty of fucking extra moving room, and if I need to take a break or whatever for a little bit, I can, and I can get back into shit. But that shit just goes.
Well, I even had my budget lined up where it was like I could put this much aside to dump into my business and make sure I'm really doing it right. And then I had like, I don't remember, $4,000 was whatever was left over or something, or maybe it was $1,800 that I put aside for the month, which really wasn't a lot, but that was enough that I could pay all my bills, buy my food, and still have a couple $100 to play with if I needed clothes or whatever. And it ended up all being gone in the first month, and I had to get another job, but then COVID came around, and it was probably another year later or so, and I got lucky enough that I got into another job where I only had to work a couple hours a day, so I could still put a lot of time into my job or into my business. And when COVID came around, that's when stuff really got good at first, because everybody was stuck in their house, they need something to do inside, and so a lot of people got into having pets, whether they want more company or they just want something to do. An aquarium really is amusing, or getting a snake or any of that stuff. So a lot of people started buying stuff from me, and it was pretty crazy. Like, it got so good that I thought, like, all right, this is it. This is where it's time to just dump all my time into this, and I'm going to be able to go somewhere. And of course that didn't work out all the way. Another situation of giving up a job, and then shit starts to go back downhill. But which moral of the story there is always have a bunch of sources of income. But I was profiting, like not gross income, but profit at bare minimum $300 a day when COVID was at its peak and everybody's stuck inside. And a lot of times I might not even have to talk to a customer because they don't want
The COVID.
Yeah, they're scared about the COVID stuff, so it's like I would just get their stuff all ready, and I'd put it on the porch, and they'd put the money in the mailbox.
So basically DoorDash it.
Yeah, it was so easy, and it was nice, but it kept me even busier than what it would if I was working 40 hours a week, because it's just wake up and you got 30 messages to get back to, and you already had 10 customers that you lined up for that day. So as you're trying to get back to these people, you got to make sure you're taking care of the ones you already got dedicated to, and yeah, it was a lot to keep up with.
I was definitely surprised when I hung out with Josh on his birthday, and he was telling me about you, and you had the aquatics business, and I would have had no idea that that would have been a passion of yours. But going back to the customers, have you ever been like disrespected, like on a just unfair level doing the job? Because I know there's a big problem with people in just retail work, working at McDonald's and shit, and something happens, and then some 16-year-old kid that's just working there is getting yelled at by a grown-ass man and just a bunch of obscenities and shit. Have you ever ran into that with it?
I haven't had any experiences that were rough. I've had a few where it was like, alright, you're being a little disrespectful and I'm just trying to do my best to make sure you're getting what you want out of it. And when you're buying used equipment, like I might buy used heaters, used aquariums, I can't test out every single aquarium, but I do test out all my other products, and I tell customers, this may not hold water. Set it up outside on a good slab of concrete, fill it up, make sure it holds water, then set it up in your house, just in case it leaks. And I've had people where I sold them a tank and then it did leak a little, and then they get mad at me, and I tell them, like, this is my policy. I will deliver you a replacement tank and make sure that it doesn't leak and stuff. But it's definitely been a lot of trial and error. Most people are really nice though. That's the cool thing. Is a lot of people I've come to, they're on the same level as me, and they just want to talk and learn, and they're happy to learn. But you do end up with a fair share of people that just refuse to learn.
Yeah.
There's a lot of right ways and there's a lot of wrong ways. And one of the biggest things is, like, you can't set up an aquarium and the same day throw fish in it. You have to have the nitrogen cycle running, which, if you don't know what the nitrogen cycle is, it's the process of ammonia getting transferred into nitrite and then into nitrate. Ammonia and nitrite are highly toxic. Nitrate is not as toxic, and if you haven't grown the bacteria in your aquarium to transfer those, you're going to end up with a buildup of one of the toxic chemicals, and it'll wipe everything out that's trying to live in there. And a lot of people don't believe it, and sometimes you can end up lucky where you do set up a tank the same day and stuff, but in most cases that doesn't work out, just because it didn't have enough time to get that bacteria in there and something builds up and makes it toxic. And so I've had people where they disagree with that, and then their fish dies and they think that it's because I had poor quality fish. And then I've also had it where people they act like they agree, and then they try to buy a tank and a fish the same day, and it's like, I'm here to make money, so I'm not gonna disagree with taking your money when you want it, but I'm not gonna sell you an animal if you're gonna end up just killing it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely just a sense of moral going into it and just giving an animal away to someone that you obviously know that's not going to take care of it. But also, it takes a special type of person to take care of these types of animals, because just from the short conversations that we've had previously off this, it takes a lot of knowledge, and you have a handful of different species of animals that you know how to take care of. And no, but I'm also glad that customer base is pretty good. But I think that's a common thing when something doesn't seem right and their instant response is anger, even though, like, you're willing to resolve the shit. Like you said, you'll bring a new tank or whatever, make sure it doesn't leak in. That should be it. It should just be a normal conversation. But I don't know, I feel like a lot of people are in the mindset of today of everyone's trying to jet them.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because a lot of what I do is I ship a lot of stuff out of town. I do a lot of local sales, but it's probably 50-50. There's a lot of stuff I ship out, and I ship live fish. I ship live reptiles. I ship live snails, live plants, whether they're potted or aquatic. I ship everything besides aquariums themselves. And it's not unusual. When I first started my company, I would search on Facebook under posts, ISO fish or ISO aquarium plants or whatever, and I'd find these posts where somebody posts in a group that I'm in, and they're in search of something I have. And so I would add that person on Facebook and message them. And so then you got this weirdo that just showed up in your messages, and he's like, hey, Are you still looking for live snails or plants? And a lot of people are not going to just give you their money and trust that you're going to ship them an item when they're all the way in California and you're over here in Michigan. And it took a long time, but after you get a handful of reviews, then you can say, here's my page. Feel free to look at the reviews. There's 30 something of them, and they all are 5-star. Nope, DoorDash just dropped their pizza off.
It's pizza time. We are back from our Tobey Maguire pizza break, and off camera we were talking about YouTube a little bit, and so for your own, you were talking about having your own business account and also a personal account. What would be some things you'd be interested in doing for YouTube?
Well, on my business account, I pretty much want to do anything along the lines of if I'm building a custom setup, or if it's a live feeding, or just pretty much anything. It could be an unboxing of stuff I get. Sometimes I get aquariums by the truckload. It'd be cool to have videos about that. And it's not unusual for me to be alone, and I've got 25 fish tanks that now I need to carry up a ladder into the attic. It'd just be cool to document it and have it there and show people what I really have to go through to do some of the things I do. But I'd like to have a personal account too, and I just don't know what I want to call it yet. And that's the only reason I don't have one, just for those random how-tos and unboxings that don't have anything to do with the critters that I take care of.
Definitely I can agree to some point to what you were saying, because when I started YouTube, I mean, I've been doing the shit since I was 12 on multiple accounts, but since I was too young and not a lot of people just want to see a little kid be a little kid, obviously, I started this channel when I think I was 16, so that'd be about 4 to 5 years ago, and it originally started just so I could have my video game accomplishments online. I just wanted that cloud storage of, oh yeah, I hit that 360 no-scope that one time, and now it's up on YouTube forever. And I always just, as you said, document it. It's something that, you know, one day when I die, if anyone's ever curious about me, they can see a ton of passions that I was into.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I can't tell you how many times I've told people, hey, I can get all the way through the whole Super Nintendo Super Mario map in 6 hours. And people are like, oh no, that's impossible. And it's like, well, I am telling you, I have beat this game 3 times in one day. I can do it. But if I had that actual live stream, that would be cool.
Honestly, I feel that because a lot of people are doubtful when it comes to harder games, and one of the biggest things for me was I have an all bosses series to where I cut out all the rest of the game and I just include every single boss of the series. And I think it was the first episode. It was Cuphead. If you ever heard of that.
Oh, for sure.
It's dummy fucking ridiculously hard game. Some people that are always in the side-scroller platformers might be easy for it, but it's definitely more of an intense game, and I'll just say it took me a few weeks and a lot of whiskey to get through that shit, because, I mean, like, you needed some patience for that, to get through it. That whole game's all about boss rushing. For like actual platformers on that game, there's like maybe like 5 stages like that, and then the rest are just bosses. But as my audience started to grow, I wanted to start expanding more on the content, because in a way, just doing video game content is just lazy to me. I feel like I could be doing so much more. I could be recording a lot more, and just also just bringing in different audiences that might be harder to reach for Zelda fans, but let's say a Zelda fan coincidentally likes my construction video, then, oh shit, he also plays Zelda, and then I got another loyal Zelda viewer just from expanding my content.
Right. Yeah, you can't go wrong with doing more than one thing.
Eventually I want to get to 7 uploads a week, but it's definitely hard getting into it because, like, there's, like, a good updraft into it, like, since you have no videos on your channel, you got idea after idea after idea you'd love to do, but once you, like, rush through all those main things, man, it's tough just thinking of ideas that, especially if you build yourself an audience, because you don't want them to unsubscribe, you don't want them to get bored of your content.
Right.
So and it's also feeling passionate about what you're doing in it too, and I've always tried to be careful not to force myself to do it, because YouTube is something I love to do, it's just me being me. But whenever it starts feeling like a job, I take a little break, give myself a cool down. But YouTube's been great so far for me, I'd say. Any help that I can give to you for your YouTube channel or anything, I'd love to do so.
Yeah, I haven't had a problem coming up with ideas, especially when it comes to on my business channel. I actually have a list on my computer that's probably at least 30 videos I could do. It's just a matter of figuring out how I want to do them and then actually getting to doing it. In between all the other things I'm constantly doing. But just like anything, if you really want to do it, there's two types of people. There's people that talk about it, and there's the people that are about it. And so if you want it done, you just got to get in there and get it done. And so I guess I'm going to have to pick a day here soon and just make something happen. And if I get lucky, maybe tonight after this podcast, I'll come out with a new feeding video, because tonight we're going to be feeding 5 snakes, a lizard, turtle, hundreds of aquatic critters, and frogs, a toad, just a large variety of things, almost a full zoo. But the big thing is just trying to figure out how to get all them angles. It's all like feeding the critter might take 5 seconds, where figuring out how to avoid the 50 glares that come out of having 75 LED lights in the same room is a whole nother story.
I would definitely say doing YouTube, I have ran into so many technical problems. Like, in a sense, it's easy to do YouTube, but like, I like to do unboxings just because to show what I got and do little reviews on it, but it's just easy to do because I'm just filming myself there, for instance, and it's just me opening my box of something I was going to open anyway.
Right.
I just slapped a camera in front of me. But then there's things like this where we try to get nicer, and we struggled a little bit setting up the podcast initially, but it's all a fun journey and knowledge that you get to keep with you.
Yeah, it was definitely a learning experience. In the past, I've used the program we're using a lot of times for musical stuff, but it's been a few years since then, and to go back through and try to figure out how things work that I thought I remembered, that was interesting. But then the whole trying to connect the USB mics when I'm used to using an analog mixer that runs through an interface, that definitely changed things up. But like I said, it was a learning experience. Now I know how to do something I didn't know how to do.
Yeah, shit. No, technology is definitely just a bunch of issues, just like, just adjusting the volume between these microphones, just little things like that. You'd think it'd be way more simpler, but it's just not. It's just a whole task in itself. Because telling you about my capture card, I literally spent about 6 hours just solving issue after issue after issue, and eventually I gave up for months. And then I ended up having to buy new cords and got all that shit, tried it again for like another 3 hours, factory resetted my shit. Still gave me problems.
If I've learned anything from the past, it sure is nice having things simple. You don't necessarily get as much out of it but it's so much easier to work with when it's just a brick.
Yeah.
But once you have a wall built, it's a whole nother story. And the same thing happens whether it's vehicles or you're talking about firearms or any of that. A revolver might only have 10 parts, where you end up with a semi-automatic pistol. It could have 50 to 75. There's so many more things that can go wrong. Same with the concept of vehicles. That simple old 4.0 engine's always going to be so much easier than playing with your V8 in the Cadillac. It's not 500 more things compressed into the same little bit of space. But it's, as long as you come out of it learning something, I'd say it's worth it, even if you didn't necessarily succeed with what you wanted in the beginning.
Some knowledge is definitely better than no knowledge. I'll definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, throughout the history of jobs and such, what was the worst job that you had to deal with investing into your business? Would you say? Or did you not have a worst job?
What do you mean by that? Like the worst job I worked for somebody else?
What was the job that you dreaded getting up the most for and going to do day by day?
I think the worst was when I worked for SMR, and I was helping make mainly mirrors and stuff for cars. And it wasn't always that I was doing the same thing every day. It was just, they mainly see you as a number, and so they're just trying to get you to do as much as you possibly can. If they see that you have 1 second to spare, you got enough time to take a drink of your coffee, you got enough time to do one more job for them. So they, like you might go in there and they have you running these presses, and it could be plastic injection molds, and they got robots pulling parts out and sending them on a conveyor belt. You got to get those parts inspected and packed before they fall off the end of the conveyor belt. And if they see you can handle running 2 of those, then they give you 3. If you can handle running 3, they give you 4. If you can handle running 4, they give you 5, and they just want to get as much as they can, squeeze every little penny they can out of you. And then on top of that, it was like constant overtime. I was working around 60 hours a week, and so nowadays a thing that I like to say is my life doesn't revolve around work. Work has to revolve around my life.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't have a life. And it's important. I heard a college professor say one time, not from my courses, I definitely didn't go to college, but I heard a college professor say one time that it's important that you're not only working hard, but when the weekend comes, forget about work, party hard. You got to get, which was hilarious to hear from a college professor, but it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you got to give your brain a break sometimes.
It's just kind of giving yourself that work-life balance and still being mentally healthy without that work overload and just being exhausted. But I definitely understand what you're saying, but I'd have to say my worst job, I've only done construction and one other part-time job. Well, it wasn't even a part-time job. It was supposed to be full-time, but Sawmill City, good old water park, KOA and all that. And, you know, I'm not against harder work. Like I said, I've been doing construction, carrying bundle of shingle after shingle on my shoulder up a 2-story house off a ladder. But the worst thing was they always had me on bumper boats, and all you would do is stand there. It was never populated enough in bumper boats to where like you'd actually have to time them and kick them out when time's up, because you never fill up the boats. People would just get bored and leave by the time more people came. Right. So we'd end up I would end up just letting them go as long as they want, because, oh well. And it was just, all you would do is stand all day. You just stand.
Yeah.
And, you know, it wasn't bad because it was like, you know, I'm getting paid for standing and occasionally throwing in some chlorine in the pool and shit. But they also was because I didn't have a car to like. I'm assuming this is the reasoning. I didn't have a car to go out for lunch or whatever, so I would have my lunch inside of Sawmill City or whatever. And after a couple 8-hour shifts, they ended up only giving me 4-hour shifts throughout the week, and I was trying to tell them, yo, I want more hours, because I was doing this and construction at the same time, so I was just at a point, I was like maybe 15, 16 at this time. I was just trying to get all the money that I could, and they said, we've been giving you 4 hours, so we don't have to give you a lunch. And fucking, I was, at this time, I think minimum wage was less than $9. I think it was like $8.70 or some shit.
Right.
So it wasn't feeling proud money, but I mean, at the same time, it was a little bit of extra cash in my pocket.
Right. Yeah, it's nice to make something, but even if you're getting paid good money, it sure does suck when you're just standing there.
Yeah.
Time goes by so slow, and it's so tedious to just do nothing. When I worked at SMR, it wouldn't be unusual sometimes when I did overtime was when it was the slowest, and that was nice. You get paid double time, you're not doing as much work, but you're just, the day feels like it's 16 hours long. You're just walking around and just waiting. You're watching the clock, and it's barely moving. 2 minutes go by, and you're like, oh, it's probably been about a half hour, and you're like, oh, alright, it's been 2 minutes.
That shit feels like the 12-hour video I decided to fucking watch for the YouTube. Also, happy 2K. Glad y'all all subscribed that day. No, that video ended up getting 1.4K views, but no, that's exactly how it felt, man. Fucking it feel like, oh, okay, I've been streaming about 20 minutes. Oh shit, 3 minutes went by.
Yeah, that's rough. I don't think I would have been able to do that video. That would have been like psychological torture. That's some kind of... They probably did that back when they were practicing mental warfare and stuff. That was one of the tests. They probably made prisoners watch that dancing dog.
No, I'll definitely say the commenters that I had during that stream helped me out so much. Even though, like, because I didn't go on my phone. Other people that I seen, like, they'd occasionally be looking down on their phone and shit. I'm like, that's basically cheating. And the only clock I had was to use my phone to, so that's how you prove you're not cheating. Like, you can't loop a full-time clock.
Right.
Shit. You know, them commenters, because, other YouTube buddy, I don't know him in real life or anything, but, I met him when, I was at, like, maybe less than 100 subscribers, and he had 4K at the time, and he came over and he would raid me occasionally and whatnot, and he's actually brought me some of my first most loyal viewers. One of them even donated me $100 on his own birthday. I was not expecting him to give that shit. It was his day. But he ended up raiding that stream. I haven't seen him in comments in a long time. He's currently at 200K. And him raiding that really fucking helped me out. Because it introduced me to a lot of newer people, but also that fluctuation of that many people joining at once helped the algorithm of brand new people that got it from the recommendations.
Right.
Good old fucking podcast.
Yeah, that's how podcasts are. It's a consistent. What should you say next?
Oh yeah, no, that's for damn sure. But it's gonna be a learning process, a learn and go thing. I don't expect first episode at all to be perfect. It's gonna be an ongoing thing. But what are you got? Top 3 favorite games? A lot of games on my channel. I'm sure people would be interested.
I do have a lot of favorite games, but before we get to that, anybody that's listening, if you want to hear us talk about anything in particular, or you want us to do a podcast based on something in the future, please comment below and let us know what you're thinking. We're always open to hear your ideas, and we appreciate it.
Shit, actually, I'm using my phone as a camera. I was about to say, a while ago I made a post for asking questions. Like, it wasn't for a podcast or anything. I was just going to do a Q&A video. I was about to say, I'll pull that shit up real quick. Let's read a few of those off, but...
If you can pull it up on my phone, you can. I don't know if that's...
if you go to my channel...
but my top 3 games, the first one is definitely going to be Super Mario on SNES.
That's surprising.
That's carved into my soul. It's a part of me now. Just from growing up playing it.
Nostalgia definitely plays big factors in these.
And it might, I probably have a real hard time actually picking the top 3. And I could say 3, and then an hour or 2 I'd think about it again, and I'd be like, oh wait, that's got to fit in there somewhere. But I've always loved Pac-Man.
Pac-Man was a guy, I used to have one of those, it was a Pac-Man shaped controller, red analog with 2 buttons on that shit.
Yeah.
It had maybe 6 games on it.
Was it the plug and play Namco Museum?
I believe so.
Yeah, I got a couple of those hiding away in the collection. I could probably do a top 3 of my retro games that I love, and then the top 3 of newer games. And when I say newer, I mean 2013.
Well, actually, the first question that was on my Q&A post was kind of perfect. Top 10 games I've ever played and why, or we. I can't give a specific order on top 10 because at this point, I have played so many games. But I can say that Legend of Zelda, love that shit to pieces, probably in my top 3. Super Smash Bros. It's not it doesn't stay fun playing by yourself, but I feel like it's one of those amazing party games to play with friends and whatever. I get competitive in it, and not a lot of games do that for me. And God of Wars has been a big recent one for me. I got into that a couple of years ago when my buddy Game shared me God of War 3 remastered for the PS4.
Oh, yeah.
And I fell in love with that series since, but for me it's just mainly been a lot of Nintendo games, Sonic, and, I'm a big fan of Black Ops Zombies, not the newer shit, but, they're doing okay for themselves at this point.
Yeah, I'm all about, if it comes to Call of Duty, I'm the MW3 survival guy. Not a huge fan of zombies. I'm probably one of the only people in the entire universe that plays Black Ops that would say that, but, and I don't even know exactly why that is. I guess I need to give it another chance. I do have every single Call of Duty game that has zombies on it.
Are you into, folklore, into, game stories and shit, or do you just play the game for the game?
I'm into the stories usually when I play it, but it really depends on the game,
They have a big-ass timeline, and just, they thought of it so well, and just the lore, and as it developed up, it just became so much bigger, because originally it was just a mystery box, and you stayed in one little room, and eventually they just added Easter egg songs. They even had Eminem, Avenged Sevenfold, and random maps. That was fun to discover, and just a lot of radios you could just look around and discover just to get more context of what is this place, and this character originated from the Illuminati and shit. You're like, oh shit. That's kind of cool to find out.
I will say that is one of my favorite things about at least the Black Ops Zombies was every time I played it with somebody else, I found out about some new hidden thing I didn't know existed. And so that was pretty cool. There is a lot of little hidden details in there, and who doesn't like to kill Nazis?
Oh yeah. No, so times are sensitive now, so they had to change the name from Nazi zombies to just zombies, but I just find that shit stupid. It's I understand, some people might be like, oh no, the past, but it's a game, man. It's if we can learn about it in school, why can't we learn more details about it in a video game?
If I can play GTA, and I can run people over, bang a prostitute, stab people with a glass bottle, and steal whoever's car I want, I think it should only be fair that I kill Nazis too.
That's the American dream.
I'd say so.
But no, I definitely have to say Black Ops Zombies is the king of Easter eggs because a lot of and like there's like a bunch of hidden details. Some of them aren't even just like Easter eggs that self-benefit you. There's like I think they're called ciphers. There's all kinds of like random ciphers you can find that gives you later details about future maps and shit. And like one of them was Black Ops 3, and it took 5 years for someone to discover what did decode the cipher.
Huh.
And that shit's just crazy to me and how well they hidden shit because they came out with Origins and people on PC were able to get access to the coding and shit, and they're like, oh shit, there's a cutscene in here, and that was the first ever cutscene introduced into zombies or whatnot. So that was a big spoiler, and then they went crazy just trying to hide shit. Any other favorite games you want to discuss real quick before next?
One of my favorite games that's kind of an oddball. There's a couple of them as being into the kind of music I'm in. Splatterhouse. I don't know if anyone else has ever heard of it. It's on PS3, Xbox 360. It is by far one of my favorite games. Love the whole everything about it. The music, the graphics, the just the gameplay, there's a lot of hidden stuff you find. And if you haven't heard of it and you like brutal games, I'd say go check it out. It's kind of set up like how God of War is set up. Same view, most of the same controls, just a totally different game. And another one of my favorites is, what is that game called? One of my favorites that I can't even remember. Man, 1 second. Probably sitting right here. Yes, it is. Brutal Legend. If you haven't heard of Brutal Legend, that game is so awesome. I can't remember the dude's name. You ever seen the movie Pick of Destiny?
Sounds really familiar.
Jack Black. Jack Black is the guy that he does the voice for the main character. Ozzy Osbourne shows up in the video game. There's just so many things that just happen that are hilarious. The stuff he says, but at the same time, there's so many awesome little details along the way where you just would not think of. Whoever did all the graphics and stuff, they really knew what they were doing. It was awesome.
I kind of felt that in a way with Saints Row. If you ever played that, it's more of a just comedic GTA. But they've had a shit ton of references and shit. I just remember one stealth mission where they actually included the Metal Gear Solid notice sound effect and whatnot. But I wouldn't say that's one of my favorite games of all time, but it's the only game I platinum.
You're right.
Favorite thing to do and why? Favorite food, animals, and drinks. Well, I guess we'll start off with favorite thing to do. I guess my favorite thing to do is just do YouTube. Only thing I can really get myself up and tell myself, you're gonna fucking do it.
I don't really know what my favorite thing is to do.
Yeah, it's a hard question. Because, like, there's multiple hobbies and it's harder to choose one over another.
Yeah, I definitely have a handful of hobbies, but I sure do like trail hopping in the Jeep, and but that's too expensive to be my favorite hobby. Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know if I'd even be able to pick one.
Favorite foods? I'm a big old fan of taco salad or chicken tenders and mashed potatoes. Classic, but my favorites.
I'd say probably cheesecake, because I like to keep things healthy, and you can't go wrong with cheese.
I didn't even know cheesecake was a healthy.
No, it's definitely not healthy.
I was about to say, I was like, hold up.
Yeah, it's not good for you at all, but we don't need to talk about that part.
Did you ever expect to almost get 2K subs? Well, I am at 2K. And I didn't even honestly expect to get 10 subscribers. Honestly, it was just I mentioned earlier in this podcast, it was just more of a cloud storage, just something that had my own little accomplishments or shit I wanted online to last forever and something I always had access to. Anyone inspire you to start thinking about YouTube?
Yeah, actually.
Also, can I grab another?
Yeah, go ahead. When I originally got into the aquarium stuff, I learned 90%, well, maybe 75%, a pretty big percentage of stuff that I learned on Aquarium Co-op's channel. Corey, the guy that owns the company, taught me a ton of stuff. And
all the way down?
Yeah, all the way at the bottom of the stairs. And he definitely inspired me a lot. It was cool to see all the stuff he learned and that he laid things out and showed how he did it. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. It made me think like, well, I do a lot of those same things. Why wouldn't I get videos going of it?
Honestly, one big one for me was Pewdiepie, but not for the complete sense of what he's done with his channel, but he, in a sense, he kind of grew up with me in a way with this channel, because at first when I started watching him, I was probably 9 years old. His shit was more catered to little kids, and it was more little kid humor. I was like, okay, and then I eventually grew up a little bit, fell out of it, and then here it comes, he's starting to do dark humor around my teenage years, and that's when you don't think about shit too much as a teenager, and it kind of just slowly fed into line with that, and I don't know, just seeing him do what he wanted. I mean, sometimes he forced himself to do things, but it's a learning experience for everybody to put in a healthy amount of work and still have fun with what you do. But just seeing him grow from over 9 years of uploading inspired me. Older YouTuber, I don't watch him anymore. I used to, but his name was Xcode, and all he did was have background footage play in the background, and he'd just talk about crazy stories of either getting jumped or his first LSD trip. And I enjoyed watching those videos a lot, and I always just wanted to do those types of things. How old was I when I made my first video? I was 12.
I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure my first video was around the same age, if not younger. I had already been skating since I was like 5 and couldn't really skate, but the more I got into it, the more I pushed towards that common little kid skating that wants to be sponsored, and the first thing is you gotta send in them sponsor me videos. So every day I woke up, put my shoes on if I didn't wake up with them already on, grabbed my board, went outside with the camera, and we got whatever kind of footage we could, and that's something I look forward to putting in my new channel that I'm going to start. Is a lot of stupid things we did, being little kids watching Jackass and Nitrous Circus and thinking, we should try that. And
that's kind of funny. My buddy posted a little bit ago, just any YouTube ideas for me, and I was like, be Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah, there you go.
I instantly thought of that shit. Well, I mean, that shit always seems fun. It's just getting the down group for that shit too. If you're depending on what you got set up.
Well, I definitely have more than enough footage that I can come out with a lot of just stupid compilations, whether it's skateboarding fails or like we would take wheelchairs and shopping carts and sleds to the skate park and see what would go up and down what ramps, and 90% of the time it didn't work out. I broke 16 bones by the time I was 16 years old. And the only reason I remember it is because how ridiculous that number was. And when the doctor was like, hey, you've already been here like 4 times this month, and we keep telling you, be a little more careful. It's like, all right, well, I'll see you again soon.
Tell it to insurance.
Yeah, you're making enough money off me. Don't worry about it.
Shit, fuck. I wish I had more documentation of it from a little kid. I feel like there's a lot of funny shit I missed, but I haven't broken too many bones. I've broken a toe. I've mainly gotten sprains, so close calls, but I'd say the worst that happened was, I think I was like maybe 14. No, actually younger than that. And I was playing in the backyard with my German Shepherd dog, and I decided to try to like loop around by a fence, and my dog just decided to jump on me and tackle me into the fence, and there was just a long ass nail that went through my ankle and shattered my growth plate.
Oh, you broke your growth plate in your shatter. I shattered a growth plate in my ankle when I was in 5th or 6th grade. I always jumped off of the top of the playset where the fire pole was. I would just like run out at that thing and just launch myself out. Sometimes I'd run and grab the fire pole and swing back and land under the thing. I don't know how I didn't hurt myself worse, but one time I jumped out there, landed on my ankle weird, and just shattered the growth plate. And that was a lovely experience. All the other kids got to watch me cry.
It was a lovely experience fucking walking back inside my house and then getting on the couch and being told, oh, if it was broken, it'd be purple and brown. And I'm like, well, don't feel too good to walk on it. He's like, well, you would have walked on it coming in the house. I was like, well, what was I going to do? Lay outside?
Right.
It's like, I'll do it. Because, I don't know, I've been thankful that I have a high pain tolerance. Because, I mean, I've had a Frisbee almost go completely through my lip to being bit in the head and needing like 12 stitches here. And I handled the shit well. Most of the time, I laughed that shit off. I'm like, that's a good memory.
I feel like growing up being a little brother, you kind of earn yourself a pain tolerance one way or another. I guess it definitely depends on the family, but...
I mean, me and Devin, growing up young, we were, like, dicks to each other. Like, we were just assholes to each other, and then sometimes, like, I'd be trying to fuck with him, trying to barge in his room, and then he ended up trying to get me out and slamming my fingers in the door and shit. And also, when we got a little older, we liked to fuck around, just fist fight a little bit, and one accidentally punches you in the mouth, and then you punch him in the eye, and then y'all laughing at each other. No, I'll definitely say an older brother definitely helped toughen me up a little bit.
I grew up with my cousins, and I grew up in a family of bikers, and so 90% of the time, if we didn't get along, whoever was stronger was right, even if they were wrong. And I remember times, like, the first time I broke any finger, I broke, I think, 5 fingers, and it was because I was chasing my cousin, and she tried to run and get in the minivan, and she's trying to slide the door closed. I'm trying to pull it open, and I slipped on the gravel, and she closed the door on my fingers. And I'm outside screaming and crying, begging her to open it, and she's just in there laughing at me. And so that really sucked. But the last time I broke bones, because I broke multiple bones in the same day at that last one, was back on Easter when it fell on 4/20. I don't remember what year that was, but that was the last time I actually hurt myself bad, and it really changed the way I did everything.
I wonder how long we've already been going for. Is there a little time?
Hour and 30 right here, hour and 32 minutes. Besides, like, we got that other whatever track.
Alright, well, I think that's around my perfect goal to end this stream. Go ahead and check out CJ Aquatics. I'm going to have his channel linked in the description, and then if he finds out what he wants to do with his personal channel and find out a name, that will also be linked in the description. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Leave any questions or anything that you might want me to talk about next podcast, and any closing remarks?
No, not other than thanks for having me for the first podcast. It was fun. Sorry that we just mumbled a bunch of nonsense at you for the first one, but hopefully the future ones, you guys got to comment some ideas, that's for sure, and in the future we'll make sure to cover them.
as time goes on, the format will definitely improve, and yeah, it was also fun just getting to sit down and talk with you on this podcast. Alright, y'all, that's it